Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a deep breath and plunging into the world of Larry Ellison.
He's a figure who just embodies so many paradoxes of, wealth and power right now.
Absolutely. As of this morning, his net worth is it's staggering. It's hovering around $240 billion.
And we can't forget, he briefly shot past the $400 billion mark earlier this year.
It's just an unreal number.
Well, the numbers frame the discussion, but the real story is what he's actually doing with that power.
Right.
So we've got sources looking at two completely different sides of his life. On one hand, you have the hyper-local reality of the Hawaiian island he basically owns, Lanny.
And on the other.
The massive global and honestly a potentially company-breaking bet he's making on AI and data infrastructure.
That duality is what's so fascinating. I mean, this is a leader known for being an iconoclast, a wartime CEO.
A ruthless acquisition guy.
Exactly. And now he's betting Oracle's entire future on what is, arguably the highest risk, lowest margin part of the whole tech stack.
All while pushing this grand vision for centralized national data and surveillance.
So our mission today is to kind of synthesize these two things.
Yeah.
How this desire for dominance over a tiny island
and dominance over global information
are really just two sides of the same coin, the same philosophy.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with the personal empire. Let's start with Lonnie.
We really have to understand this isn't just some remote vacation home for him.
No.
He bought nearly the whole island back in 2012 for about $300 million.
Which for him is like finding loose change in the couch.
Right. And then in 2020, he made it his permanent residence. So this is the purest form of personal, physical control a tech titan can really get.
It sounds unbelievable, but the sources we looked at remind us that this history, this idea of one person owning the island, it goes way back.
That's such a critical piece of context. Lonnie has always had this complicated relationship with its owner.
From the Pineapple King, James Dole, to
David Murdoch, exactly. So for the residents, this isn't a new problem. It's more like a continuous cycle of living under this inherently unequal power dynamic.
Your life and your livelihood depend on one single landlord.
Precisely.
And at first, there was a bit of a honeymoon period, wasn't there? When he first arrived, he even got a nickname.
He did. Uncle Larry.
Uncle Larry.
He renovated the local movie theater. He opened the community pool. Small gestures for a man of his wealth, but it earned him some temporary social capital.
But that capital, it seems like it eroded pretty quickly.
Very quickly. And it came down to one thing, really. A total lack of communication.
Yeah, we have a longtime resident, Robin Kay, who really highlighted this. So the owner has never spoken to the community.
Not one public meeting.
Not a single forum for people to just share their thoughts or concerns.
And that's where you see the systemic nature of the problem, which is a point that Maury County Council member Gabe Johnson made. The issue isn't just about Larry Ellison's personality. It's the fact that the island is, and this is a quote, under one purchasable island.
Meaning the local voices, they just don't have a structural way to make themselves heard.
There's no avenue for real influence.
And that feeling of a savior complex that people talk about?
Yes.
It really seems to crystallize the issue. It's this sense that the owner, whoever it is, shows up thinking they know what's best without ever asking the community.
And that has real tangible impacts. We're seeing huge demographic shifts on the island.
The population used to be mainly Filipino families from the old plantation days.
That's right. But since about 2015, you've seen this big influx of affluent residents, mostly from the continental U.S.
Which you can imagine leads to a lot of cultural friction.
Absolutely. Kay mentioned that these wealthy newcomers, they often want to change it to what they think it should be, or they're just, quote, dumb about cultural connections.
And that's not just a neighborly dispute. That's a fight over the whole identity of the place.
And the economic reality is just as harsh. Young people don't see opportunities, so they have to move away.
What's really tough to hear is the housing insecurity facing the kupuna, the elders.
It's heartbreaking. They often don't work for Kulamalani, which is Ellison's management company.
The company that basically runs the island?
Right, so they're excluded from company housing. These are people with generational ties to the island, and yet they are the most economically vulnerable.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does Anne, who wants this very specific, high-friction kind of local control,
this physical dominance,
how does he then pivot to making this massive global, almost abstract bet on technology?
Because it's the same impulse. It's a perfect microcosm for his global approach.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to participate in a market. He wants to own it, dominate it.
So let's connect that to the business side, to Oracle. He's still chairman, CTO, co-founder, owns about 40% of the company.
And that stock surge we mentioned, the one that put him over $400 billion, that was all on the back of AI hype.
Right. For years, Oracle had this reputation of being a plodding dinosaur.
Yeah, legacy tech?
Super profitable, sure, because of its database business. But analysts all saw it as out of growth. So what was the real risk they were facing? Why was this crazy AI pivot the only path forward?
The risk was, in a word, irrelevance.
Okay.
Oracle's core business, that database business, it's a fortress. It has this incredible moat because customers are locked in, but it's not a high-growth business anymore.
The future is all cloud and AI.
The future's in the cloud. And if
Right.
they didn't become a legitimate hyperscaler, one of the big guys like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they were on a path to becoming a very profitable, but ultimately a niche company.
But becoming a hyperscaler means spending just an unimaginable amount of money on data centers,
Billions and billions.
which is a high-volume, low-margin business. That's a whole different ballgame from what they were doing.
A completely different model. And the financial risk is, well, it's profound. Oracle's balance sheet is shockingly weak compared to those other guys,
We mentioned that debt-to-equity ratio, right? It's at 500%.
which is just alarming. And it's
Wow.
exactly why Moody's downgraded their debt rating. They're worried about how Oracle can possibly handle all this debt while spending so much on infrastructure.
So wait a minute. If the database business is so stable, so profitable, why risk the whole company to jump into this low-margin race where you're already years behind?
That is the central question.
Because it seems to run completely counter to the M&A genius he was famous for.
It does. His old playbook was ruthless, but it was smart. I mean, since 2005, he did 39 major acquisitions. PeopleSoft, Siebel, NetSuite.
All designed to just consolidate the market.
Consolidate the market, force customers to migrate, and strip out all the extra sales and marketing costs. His acquisitions were always additive to profit.
He was famous for not caring about building versus buying. He said it was bizarre that there's a stigma to buying something. He just wanted to win.
And he was brilliant at it. But this AI pivot is different. They're building this from the ground up, and the whole thing is surrounded by some significant financial murkiness.
Yeah, analysts are really skeptical of their backlog numbers.
Very skeptical, because a lot of that money they say is committed. It's from customers like OpenAI, which isn't even profitable itself yet.
And then you hear terms like vendor financing getting thrown around. Can you just break that down for us? What does that mean in simple terms?
It essentially means Oracle is lending its customers money or giving them these sweetheart deals so that those customers will sign big long-term contracts.
So it inflates the backlog numbers now.
Exactly. It makes the future look really rosy right now, but it adds a ton of risk down the road. And critics point out that this kind of stuff, this hype, these murky deals, you usually see that late in a market cycle.
Right before a bubble bursts.
That's the fear.
So we have to figure out if this is the next brilliant move in his playbook,
Hmm.
a calculated risk that looks crazy but will pay off, or if it's just a desperate financial play to keep the stock price up.
And I think that decision really depends on whether you believe in his ultimate vision. And that vision it's massive. And it's incredibly controversial.
He's called AI the most important discovery in human history.
Bigger than electricity. Bigger than the Industrial Revolution. That's the stage he's setting for his global ambition.
An ambition which led him to propose, at the World Government Summit in Dubai no less, that every single nation should
unify all the national data.
When he says all, he means all of it.
Spatial info, economic data, all your electronic healthcare records, and this is the critical one-all of your genomic data.
And put it all into a single database that an AI can access.
Right, and he promises this utopian payoff. Personalized medicine that can instantly diagnose cancer, custom vaccines, a revolution in agriculture.
But the infrastructure for that vision is just mind-boggling.
Oracle is building a 2.2 gigawatt data center. That could cost anywhere from $50 to $100 billion.
And he's part of that $500 billion Stargate project, too.
And just to give you a sense of scale, 2.2 gigawatts. That's enough electricity to power roughly 2 million homes. This is about physical control of the world's ability to process information.
And that centralized data structure, it leads directly to his most provocative statement.
The one that gets him called a Bond villain.
He has explicitly said that a vast AI-fueled surveillance system would ensure citizens will be on their best behavior.
Because, in his words, the system is constantly watching and recording everything that's going
The
on.
comparisons to 1984 were immediate and obvious.
And it doesn't help his case that he started his career building databases for the CIA, and Oracle is still one of the biggest government and military contractors out there.
The idea of funneling all of a country's data into a system run by a single private contractor it's a huge red flag for anyone who cares about civil liberties.
So this is where we connect all the dots, this philosophy of total control. It's exactly his leadership style. It's what he does everywhere.
The wartime CEO, he's not obsessed with consensus. He's obsessed with winning, with total dominance.
Exactly. He has this concept he calls talent density. You empower the top 10%, and consensus becomes totally optional.
He sets unreasonable expectations on purpose to push his teams.
Because he believes greatness rewards the bold. His whole motivation, according to sources, really comes down to proving everyone wrong. It's about dominance and maybe a kind of vanity.
So we've taken this deep dive across these two extreme poles of his influence. On one side, the local friction of owning Lane, where people feel totally ignored by this one absolute authority.
And on the other, this global ambition to control the ultimate 21st century commodity national data through a massive debt-fueled gamble at Oracle.
The big takeaway seems to be that despite all the financial risk, despite his age, he has made sure that he is still the guy.
He refuses to be a legacy figure. He's betting everything to stay at the absolute center, to be the one defining the future of technology.
So here's the final thought for you to mull over. If Ellison's entire history shows he's willing to risk it all to avoid becoming irrelevant, and that his aggressive, unconventional strategies usually work out,
Should we see this massive debt-fueled AI push as a reckless failure, just waiting to happen?
or is it just the calculated next act from a leader who has always seen boldness as a strategy? Something to think about until our next deep dive.